Hello and welcome to the video podcast here at the Co-working Pop-Up. My name is Shazad and I'm the founder of the Co-working Pop-Up. We're the region's first online and offline incubator. And today here we are with Aarti from Liked Social, and we'll be talking about the new Instagram algorithm update. So there's been a lot of buzz recently in the media about how the recent change in Instagram's algorithm is affecting influencers, media, as well as small business owners. So today I want to talk to Aarti about how this will affect us as small business owners in Dubai and entrepreneurs. So welcome Aarti, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start off with a quick introduction.
So I'm from Liked Social. It's basically a creative content agency. We specialize in original content and social media management.
Great. So today, should we start off talking about what actually is an algorithm?
That's a good question, because a lot of small businesses and startups don't know the basics of what an algorithm actually is. So if you look at Instagram and you look at your profile, you may see a number of images and videos, but in reality, Instagram is seeing a bunch of statistics. So they're looking at your profile and they're seeing this person posts twice a day. They post with this amount of hashtags. They post a certain number of stories. And so they've got a number of statistics on your profile which they use to determine how frequently your content gets shown.
Okay. So that's specifically an algorithm within Instagram.
Yes, exactly.
So maybe break it down a bit further. What actually is an algorithm outside of Instagram? You know, we hear about the algorithm on Snapchat or on Facebook. So maybe break it down a little bit just before that.
So if you think about it, in simple terms, an algorithm is basically a code or a set of rules that a platform or a software uses to determine a certain outcome. To say it in simple terms. So whether it's Facebook or Instagram or Google Plus, all of these platforms use a certain amount of code and they use specific statistics to determine a certain outcome. So what we're talking about today is the way Instagram uses that code to determine the outcome, which is how often your content gets seen or how much engagement you get, etc.
Okay. And the algorithm between Instagram or Facebook, it will be different.
Yes, exactly.
They won't be the same, even though it's the same company.
Yes, exactly. So they've got different objectives. Different platforms have different objectives. So the algorithm that they use on each of these platforms will differ slightly, depending on that outcome. But essentially, the basics are the same.
Okay. So we've been hearing a lot of rumors about something called a shadow ban. So first of all, what exactly is a shadow ban?
So I've got to reiterate as well that it is kind of rumors circulating on the internet, but a lot of people have seen the effects of this so-called shadow ban from Instagram, and it's basically where Instagram has lowered your engagement, lowered the amount of exposure your content's getting, which a lot of people have noticed, but not actually told you that they've done that. Okay. So many people have noticed drastic drops in their engagement, in their number of likes and comments, but Instagram haven't informed them at all about anything that's happening. They've just noticed that drop, and it's been quite a popular thing that's been happening. Okay. So what a shadow ban is that allegedly, if people are using the same hashtags over and over again, Instagram has taken it upon themselves to reduce the exposure of that content of the profile that's using those same hashtags over and over again. Okay. So there are certain ways to avoid being shadow banned, and one of the main things would be to switch up your hashtag strategy. So hashtags are still a great way to get that exposure and bring new people onto your platform, but you have to have a specific strategy in mind, and at Liked Social we would recommend switching up your hashtags regularly, maybe creating multiple lists of relevant hashtags which are all different and using them over different posts.
Okay, so that's the top tip. Don't use the same hashtags on a continuous basis. So that's one of the tips that you're recommending. What other tips and tricks can you tell us as entrepreneurs, as small business owners, specifically in Dubai, to increase our engagement?
So engagement is a really, really important thing to keep in mind. As we're talking about the algorithm and Instagram's new algorithm, the main kind of driver to determine determine how your content gets seen is engagement. So there are certain things that especially startups and small businesses, people that are just starting out on social media can do to boost that engagement. So now you've got stories, Instagram stories, and that's a great place to get a lot more views on your content with recent algorithm changes. To get a lot more views on your content and to also translate that into profile views and to translate that further into actual conversions, whether that's purchasing your product or following your page, or whichever conversion that you're looking at. Some of these kind of hacks or tips can include using things like the polling feature on Instagram stories. So asking your customers, do you like this product? Which color do you prefer, pink or blue? It just creates that level of engagement and encourages them to engage. You've got other things like the swipe up feature for people that have 10K followers or more. Of course, there are ways around that as well. So if you don't have 10K followers, if you're a small business or a startup, you can always say, DM us for a direct link to the product, which is great because you've put a picture of your product on Instagram stories. You've told the person that's viewing the story to DM you, which then creates a conversation. So then you're starting to converse with that person, sharing a link, saying thank you for following us, thank you for taking the time out to speak to us. So that again is increasing the amount of engagement that you're generating. Okay. So it's all kind of everything kind of adds up to increase that engagement.
So an engagement is one tick on the algorithm.
Yeah.
To help our profile or our content be at the top of people's feed.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah.
And so apart from engagement, is there anything else in terms of posting more, or I know we're going to go into hashtags in more detail in a minute, but apart from engagement, what else could there be?
So engagement kind of covers a whole set of different aspects. So within engagement, you've got a lot of different things that you can look at. I mean, I use the overarching term engagement, but you've got a lot of other things that you can look at, such as the amount of time that someone spends on a post. So, for example, if you've got a long caption, the amount of time that someone actually spends reading that caption, again, feeds into the Instagram algorithm, indicating that your content is worthwhile and worth reading, and that it's providing value to your followers and to new people. So then Instagram is encouraged to boost your content up further. So that's one example, the amount of time someone spends on your post. Another one could be how often or how quickly you respond to comments. Okay. So if someone comments on your profile, it's recommended that you reply with a relevant comment or a like even within the first hour. And that's really important because research shows that Instagram kind of give a higher preference to the activity on your post within the first hour. So if you've got lots of comments going back and forth within that time frame, then again, Instagram is more likely to boost your content up.
And what about all these comments that we see, which, I mean, they may be bots? It's always very cool picture or super cool.
There's a lot of
things like that. So does Instagram recognize that as a comment that we should reply to? Or is it okay not to respond to these kind of comments?
So we would say yes, a comment is a comment. Even if it is coming from a bot and it's very easily recognizable that it's coming from a bot, it's still a comment that's been placed on your picture. So the best thing and the easiest thing for you to do is to still give that response. Therefore, on your end, you're kind of doing everything you can to maximize that engagement. Not worrying so much whether it's come from a bot or it's a genuine comment. Okay. That's kind of stuff that you don't have to worry about if you want to boost your own engagement. Yeah. But yes, you're right. A lot of that does exist.
And if you it has the heart symbol, I assume, is that seen as replying to the comment, or it should be actual typed in words replying?
I think it is seen as engagement as well. I would do a mix of the two. Sometimes certain comments don't require a genuine comment back, and in that case it's okay to just like the comment and only respond to ones that you can actually provide some value with, actually respond to a question, or to say thank you for a nice sentence that's actually on there. So I would recommend using a mix of both.
And how about commenting on other people's posts? or even tagging other people's posts? I know there was not a situation. I know there was some discussion on this in the past in terms of if people were tagging other users, other profiles, it was frowned upon. Is there any changes in this in the new algorithm?
So, as with kind of everything, I would always recommend to do something in moderation and to do it when it's actually relevant. So in the case of tagging other people, it's a great way to kind of boost exposure for your page if you're tagging someone that's relevant and that's someone that's likely to either like your post or share your post or repost it. And I think doing that is kind of a community building exercise, and it is great to kind of indicate to Instagram that you're active on the platform, that you're within a community, but tagging a huge amount of other people that are not relevant can be seen as spam-like. So again, Instagram is cracking down on that spam activity. So there's a balance, and I would just recommend to do that in moderation.
Okay. So let's talk a bit about hashtagging. Of course, this is something you've briefly spoken about a few minutes ago, but let's go into that a bit more. What do you recommend about using hashtags and coming up with a strategy and a plan?
So, as I was saying before, hashtags are still a great way to gain exposure to your content, especially people that are not currently following you or haven't seen your content before. If you've seen the Explore page, it's a great way to kind of search. It's a great place to search for hashtags, which then leads on to people finding your content. In terms of strategy, we always recommend using a mix of hashtags. You've got the hashtags that have millions of uses, millions of people using that particular hashtag, and sometimes using those very short hashtags is great to gain exposure, but it might not bring in the most relevant audience. So it's always good to have a mix of kind of those big term hashtags that have huge uses, and then the hashtags with the smaller uses that are maybe more relevant to your product.
Okay. Which I think, being in Dubai, we have many hashtags which are global, that necessarily don't bring interest or business, essentially, or inquiries or engagement from people within the UAE itself. So are there any hashtags you can recommend to use which are locally focused?
You're definitely right. There's especially if you're a Dubai-based business and you're trying to attract customers within this area, using global hashtags don't always bring in the right audience that might actually buy your product or use your service. So there are a number of Dubai-based hashtags, especially ones that are promoted by Dubai itself, that you can use to show that you're part of the community and also attract people that are using the same hashtag. Things like My Dubai, if you're in fashion or beauty, you've got Dubai Fashion, Dubai Beauty. So using the actual location name within the hashtag does really help to bring in that relevant audience.
Okay. And how about Arabic and Arabic hashtags? Is that a thing? Are there Arabic hashtags, or is it all in English?
There are Arabic hashtags. Okay. There are loads of Arabic hashtags, and there's a huge Arabic speaking community on Instagram that you can really tap into. And one strategy, if you are kind of targeting that audience as a startup or small business, is to post all of your content in both languages. Writing the captions in Arabic so that someone that's potentially landing on it can understand, as well as using Arabic hashtags as well. Splitting your hashtags 50-50, half of them are English, half of them are Arabic. It's a great way to pull in that audience as well.
Okay. So are there any rules that you need to follow in terms of hashtags? So I know there is a maximum of 30 hashtags we can use, is that correct?
There's a lot of people actually know, but the maximum number of hashtags that you can actually put in a post is 60.
Okay.
So what people don't know is in the caption you can put 30 hashtags, but in the first comment you can also put 30 hashtags, so totaling 60. There's a certain way to do it. You have to add the comment hashtags first before the caption hashtags. Exactly,
loophole.
A little loophole there, but that's a way to kind of maximize the number of hashtags that you're using. And there's different ways to do it. Some people don't like including that many, and some people like including the maximum 30 or maximum 60. There's no right way. It just depends on your strategy and how you want to go forward. But we personally think maximizing your exposure, especially when you're starting out, to gain that following and to bring people in, is always a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes people will look at it from an aesthetic point of view, rather than having 60 or even 30 hashtags, which can sometimes seem a bit spammy. I think other people, maybe perhaps people who already have thousands of followers, they are able to just put minimal hashtags.
Exactly, yeah. It does become a bit of an aesthetic thing as well, especially if that's the kind of look you want to put across. But there are ways to get around it. You don't always have to put the hashtags in the caption. You can put them in the first comment, where they're essentially kind of hidden from someone scrolling past. Or you can opt for a minimal strategy where you use 5 to 6 really relevant hashtags, and you use them very often to really become a part of that community, that hashtag community.
Okay. So I know now that one of the new features is you're able to follow hashtags. What are your thoughts on this? How can we use this both as users and as small business owners?
So it's a great exposure opportunity. It's great because now people are following topics instead of only people. So say, for example, you're interested in fashion, you may be following the Dubai fashion hashtag. And it's also great for startups because their content that they post, if they tag it with Dubai fashion, they've got a chance of appearing within that aggregated hashtag story or hashtag feed post. So it's a great option for maximizing your exposure. And what I would recommend is using this again in terms of relevance. So hashtagging it with a few very relevant hashtags to increase your chances of appearing in that story or appearing within that aggregated feed. What we tend to find is if you use 30, you seem to be more less likely to appear in those aggregated stories compared to if you just use 5 or 6 very relevant ones.
I mean, I think it seems to be that social media is becoming a full-time job. I know there's many agencies out there, there's many full-time in-house social media managers. A lot of the time, small businesses and startups cannot necessarily afford this. And I think commonly assume that it's something they can manage themselves. What do you think in terms of, for an entrepreneur, is it important for them to have help in the early days, or is this something that they can do on their own?
I wouldn't say there's a right answer to that question. It kind of depends on the person, depends on their ability, if they understand the platform, if they understand how the algorithm works. But I would say that as an entrepreneur, your skill set is in building your business a lot of the time. You want to focus on pushing the business forward. You have ideas, you want to focus on different things. Sometimes social media does become a full-time job, and it takes away your time and your focus on things that you may not be where your strengths lie. So in those cases, I think the positive aspects of bringing someone on board to help you massively outweigh the cost. If someone's on board to kind of help you with the day-to-day, to help with the management, help with the content production, you can kind of take your time to focus on the things that you're good at as an entrepreneur, to focus on pushing the business forward. But again, it depends on the particular person.
Of course. And I think also another point I want to kind of put out there is the demographic who's using Instagram, for example. We're going on, we're advertising, we're posting content. Our objective essentially, in essence, is to increase our followers, increase our brand awareness, and sometimes increase our leads and inquiries, and therefore sales. Do you think there's a cutoff point in terms of the demographic? If I'm targeting, say, for example, a certain gender, 40 plus, business to business. I'm selling a service to business owners or decision makers in a business capacity. Do you think in certain times there is a cut-off point to say, hey, social media, Instagram is not going to work for your business?
I think it does depend on the industry that you're in, the people that you're trying to target. I wouldn't kind of limit the possibility of how social media can work for you, because a lot of these decision makers and say government officials and whoever you're looking to target, a lot of those people are on the platform as well, and it just depends on finding the right, whether it's hashtags or the right stories, to post to attract that attention. And that's where the thinking and the strategy has to come into play to attract that audience. And I do think there is a limit to the size of the audience for different industries. And then, that's where you have to kind of deploy different tactics as well as a combined marketing strategy to kind of bring your business forward. So I think, it depends on the industry. But it's definitely possible for a variety of industries, probably more than people think.
Okay. And now let's look into the future. Can you see Instagram changing back or reversing into the old algorithm, and I think there's been many hashtags, and there's been a lot of buzz in the media about moving back to a simple chronological feed format. Do you think that's a possibility?
I mean, there were a lot of rumors that it was Instagram was thinking about going back to the old feed, the old algorithm. I don't personally think they're going to go back that way, just because Instagram and Facebook, they're constantly trying to push for improving user experience. So this whole algorithm was brought about so that as a user you get served the content that Instagram deems that you're going to actually like, and it kind of depends more on your relationship as a user, your relationship with the publisher, how much you like them, how much you interact with their posts. So they're kind of moving towards a structure where they're providing users more value, and if they think that this is actually providing more value, I don't see them going back to a chronological feed where
time will
you
tell.
don't see that. But you're right, time will tell.
Let's finish it off there. Is there anything you would like to finish off by, any kind of tips or trends which you would like to express to the entrepreneurs and the startups out there?
Yes, definitely. So at the moment, at this moment in time, I would say definitely focus on Instagram stories. There's a lot of attention on there right now. I think it's like 300 million users on stories compared to a third of that or something like that on Snapchat. It's massively outgrown Snapchat. And in terms of stories, there are a huge amount of apps and different things out there to make your stories stand out. Some of them I like to use, like InShot and Unfold. There's loads of different things to make your stories more creative and engaging. So I think, yes, definitely focus on that. And also, I'm really interested in Instagram story highlights at the moment. So they're basically little pockets of stories that live on your page, and they essentially live forever on your page, where you can kind of separate them into categories or days or different themes that, it's something that's really engaging that people are more likely to now look at than the feed. So I'd say, definitely concentrate on that.
And this is something you go into in your workshops?
Yes, definitely. So I'm going to be running a series of workshops here at the Co-working Pop-Up, all about Instagram stories, Facebook, and many other platforms and how to use them. Excellent.
Thanks a lot, Aarti. That was very helpful, and you can find out more information on the workshops and all of the events scheduled by downloading our Co-working Pop-Up app. Aarti will also be posting an article on the app shortly about this, and there's many other articles and video tutorials that you can find to boost your social media, your business, your marketing, all aspects of your business. So thanks for listening today, and we look forward to meeting you next time. Thank you.